Hello there, Medicine here, and today's another episode of BJD and a cup of tea. Alright, hold you in a comfortable spot like your cat. Yeah, like that. On today's episode of BJD and a cup of tea, I just want to talk to you about burnout. Yes, burnout and hobbies. And I really want to talk about this particular topic. It's been on my mind for a while because I really feel like we need to keep talking about mental health issues, even within hobby spaces, because there's so many people who only come on the internet or only go in certain spaces, and maybe they're missing out on key resources or coping skills, or maybe they're here because they're dealing with something and they feel alone. And I don't want anyone, regardless of where you're at or what hobbies you're into, to feel like you're alone in this world, because we're not. There's so many people, we all deal with so many things, and I just wanted you to know I'm here for you. So, that said, I want to talk about burnout. For a little bit of background, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology. I double majored in both psychology and sociology, and was probably only like 9 credits, 3 credits. I was only like a summer, like 3 classes away from getting a whole nother bachelor's degree, but I was not gonna stay in school any longer than I had to. That to being said, I do understand certain things about mental health. It's important to me. I do have a background in it, a higher education. Does that mean I'm an expert? No. I have no licensing. I'm not a therapist. I don't have the qualifications to like go out and start psychoanalyzing anyone or diagnosing anyone at all. That is not my place. But I do want to talk on a place of knowing a little bit more than maybe the average person, and knowing a little bit more than pop psychology, like the psychology you read about in magazines or on TV shows. So, again, not an expert, but I do know a little bit more than the average person. And because of that knowledge, I do want to try to start helping destigmatize, like remove the stigmatization on mental health issues, especially in hobby spaces. I feel like there's so many times where people are in a hobby. We do hobbies because they bring us joy, because they mean something to us, because we find some kind of purpose, or just we get a huge kick of dopamine, a huge, endorphin rush, very excitement about whatever our hobbies are. And a lot of times we meet other people in our hobbies, and that also brings us community. So not only do you have this really cool sense of who you are as a person, because an identity within your hobby is very important, you also have a sense of community because there are like-minded people who are in this hobby with you. And I just want to be that person who's in this hobby with you, who says it's okay to struggle. It's okay if you start to feel a little bit not interested in your hobby. I just want to be that place, that safe space for everyone who deals with stuff and maybe you don't understand. I want to be that safe place for you because I need that safe place for myself. So I say all that. I want to talk about burnout. Burnout is technically defined as a workplace specific issue. It's not diagnosable. Burnout is not an actual mental health diagnosis issue, but it is a very common occurrence, so much so that we do have a lot of literature, we do have a lot of discussion about what burnout is, what it feels like, what it looks like. It's very highly correlated with depression. In fact, burnout and depression have a lot of things in common. So burnout is kind of almost like a workplace specific depression. And that's what's different, because it's not depression. Depression follows you probably your whole life. Like, depression doesn't really necessarily go away. We just learn how to cope with it and kind of work on like maintaining it in a way that somebody with like diabetes might maintain your insulin with medication or other, external forces and influence. depression's kind of like that, but it's your mind. So sometimes there's medicine that you take for depression. Sometimes it's just certain activities or check-ins that you do, or certain things that you have to change. Even diet influences depression. So, but it's not something that just magically, suddenly you wake up one day and you're no longer dealing with it. Like, you're gonna have good days, but you're also still gonna have that reoccurrence. So for me, I've had depression my whole life. I also have anxiety. I'm high functioning anxiety. I've found that my depression and anxiety have significantly lessened. They're less of an impact on my life since making some very hard changes in who I am around and putting some very strong boundaries on how I interact with certain people. For me, my depression and anxiety stems from a traumatic childhood. And in fact, I think for me, the depression and anxiety I've dealt with is specific also to complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I say all of that because I wanted to give you a clear picture of what I've struggled with my whole life and what's led me to this point and led me to what I'm going to talk about, which is burnout. Again, burnout is burnout is typically workspace specific, but I also want to add to the burnout definition high demand roles or high responsibility roles. So not just workplace, like you get burned out at work, sure, but also like high demand, high responsibility roles like caretakers. There is so much burnout with people who are caretakers. They talk about it in different things. I've heard some hospice nurses and hospice people talk about caretakers dealing with burnout. Again, that's something when in my psychology and social work classes back in the day, we talked about, because I did take some social work classes, and social work is also very high, burnout area. Whenever you're taking on other people's needs and emotions and you're being responsible for these other living people, you do get a higher rate of burnout, because depending on how much you're giving out to take care of people, loved ones, whoever, even animals. I mean, maybe there's people who get burned out being caretakers of animals, right? Whatever it is, you may not be receiving back the same level that you're putting out into the world. And that's what burnout basically comes down to. It comes down to when someone puts so much energy, so much effort into something, whether it's a job, whether it's being a caretaker of another living person or living being, whether it's content creators. There's a lot of burnout in content creators and influencers and social media and, hobbies. You can get burned out doing a hobby, okay? Like that's what we're here to talk about today. So there's burnout because whatever you're putting in, you're not getting something in return that's of equal value to you. For a lot of people, doing a hobby, getting the joy back from that is enough. That's the value in and of itself. You write the story, whether or not it gets published, whether or not people ever read it, the experience of writing it might be enough for you. The joy of creation might be enough. It brings you enough back. Some of us need money to feel motivated. Like that's a big motivator for me, monetization, just because the other areas of my life, that's the area that I'm struggling with. So sometimes I've cut back on doing these videos because I'm no longer monetized. Like that's kills any kind of motivation because you're not going to get anything out of it. But I also am doing these videos because I'm trying to get back into the hobbies because they do bring me joy. And the videos keep me accountable in doing things that bring me joy. And we're going to get to that too. Okay, so I've been in a state of burnout for a very long time. I think personally, if I really get down into it, and I have been in thinking of how to do this video and preparing for this, my burnout is a specific manifestation of my complex post-traumatic trauma that I grew up in. So post-traumatic stress disorder is when something traumatic happens and you are carrying that stress inside of your body and you get triggered by certain things that remind you of the traumatic experience. So your body carries that in because it's a protection mechanism that your body sort of has inside of it, your brain kind of keeps. And what it is it's trying to protect you from having that same experience happen again. And in modern day, this can be a little bit irrational because, you know, we have to deal with certain things that we didn't, because of where our technological development is, right? In the forest, you might have a post-traumatic stress response to an attack from like poisonous snakes or an attack from a predator. When we were, you know, our ancestors, Neanderthals and, you know, hunter-gatherers and everything, the traumatic response is because an event scared you and was life-threatening, and now your body's going to remember. It's going to soak in all the information from that event. What was the weather like? What was the trees like? What was the grass like? What was the atmosphere? What sounds were there? What noises, like any kind of stimulus from your five senses that your brain can take in from that moment, it will hold on to. And so if you're somewhere else in another part of the woods, you might hear a rustling and you're triggered. And you remember that freaking lion came and tried to eat you. So you're going to like avoid that spot. Or your mind's going to be like, hey, we're getting a little bit close. Those jagged rocks over there look a lot like that lion cave. You're going to feel a response in your body because you're seeing these jagged rocks and you're going to be like, there might be lions nearby. I need to stay away. And it's instinctual. It's like this whole thing happens without you really thinking about it. And it's a protection. It's a protection mechanism, a protective mechanism. It's to protect you from getting attacked again because now your body has absorbed all the information it possibly could from that lion attack to protect you from that happening again. Well, guess what? We don't got no wild lions around here, right? So now it's different, but it's still the same. Your body still responds the same way. For me, the car accident I had a few years ago, and honestly, my burnout was before this, but it got bad after the car accident. It's gotten really bad after the car accident, and I'll talk about that. My car accident I had a few years ago, the other person ran the red light and T-boned me, like complete. I never saw them coming. Never saw them coming because it was like, it was red and everybody was stopped and I was waiting. It was not, there was a huge delay between me entering the intersection and that car barreling through. I mean, and they flipped over. Their car completely flipped over. My car was completely totaled. The entire passenger side was collapsed. The like every airbag. I didn't even know there was airbags in some of the places where there were airbags. Every airbag exploded. The car was smoking. Somebody pulled me from the car because it was smoking because they were worried that it was going to like catch fire or something. I don't know. It was very traumatic and I didn't see it coming. So the amount of information that I could take in from that was very much like an after effect. But to this day, there are still certain things that I do and don't do because of that car accident. Because my body has a physical response, like a fear response to those things. And I truly think this is where superstitions come from. I think a lot of our superstitions might have come from somebody's post-traumatic stress from something. Because I'll tell you, for example, one of the totally irrational things that I just, before I left the house, again, your brain takes in all the information it can to protect you from this happening again. So for me, because the accident was completely outside of anyone's, like my control completely, I didn't do anything wrong. My brain absorbed all of the information from the whole day. So how I dressed before I left the house, I will not wear flip-flops if I'm going to be driving the car because I was wearing flip-flops that day. I will put on jeans and make sure I'm fully dressed before I left the car, before I drive anywhere, because I left thinking, here's what happened. I was going to pick up an order. I had a pickup, drive up, pick up, where you drive up, they put the stuff in your trunk and you leave. And where I'm going is literally down the street. It's less than, it's like 5 minutes from my house. It's just outside of our big neighborhood, one light, there you go. And then you turn and you come out a different light and you're back in the neighborhood and then you go drive through the neighborhood to get to your house. So I drove. So I was thinking, I'm not going to get out of my car. I'm not going to get totally dressed. I made tea. I made a big cup of hot tea. And I left it on the counter for it to cool off. Because I'm like, it's going to be the perfect temperature when I get back. And I'll be able to drink that tea and it'll be perfect. I'm just going to leave it. To this day, it's been over 3 years, y'all. To this day, I cannot leave a cup of tea, hot tea, on the counter if I'm getting in the car. Even if I'm just driving down the street to, get gas, pick up a kid, get the groceries, like whatever I'm doing, I have to either put that tea in a container and take it with me, or I have to finish it before I leave the house. Like, I will not leave tea. And it's irrational. And I know it. Even knowing it, I'm like, I know this is like weird. It's superstitious behavior. I can't do it. I cannot. I have to. Because as soon as I do, I make a tea and I'm like, oh, I need to run somewhere. I'm like, well, I can't leave yet. I still got tea I need to finish. Or, well, which cup can I put it in to take it with me? I will not leave that house with a cup of tea on the counter. That's just, and I make sure I'm fully dressed. Like, those are the two things. And honestly, the fully dressed thing is good anyways, because I ended up at the hospital. I ended up having to ride an ambulance. It's just all the things, y'all. So it makes sense, but those are post-traumatic responses. So for me, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, is a series of traumatic experiences that happen more than, so it's repeated traumatic experiences over a period of time. With the CPTSD, so it's similar to complex, it's similar to PTSD, but instead of it being one trigger, there's a lot more information that can upset you, a lot more triggers. Sometimes it's even hard to identify something is a trigger, because whatever happened that made you feel so much fear in that moment, certain volume, once a person starts to reach a certain volume with their voice, I start having a fear response, because there was a lot of yelling, a lot of cussing, certain cuss words, certain phrases really bother me. And I know now that those are triggers, because I grew up and I was in a relationship with some very verbally abusive, some very strong language, very toxic, unhealthy behaviors from people who were stronger and in authority over me. And I don't do well in those areas. And with those certain things, those are triggers. So I know that for me, the burnout started because I started putting up boundaries. I started eliminating these toxic relationships. And again, my anxiety has gone way, way down, because I realize my anxiety is specifically a response to the trauma, to the CPTSD. So my anxiety, I was always anxious because I was always dealing with somebody who was hypercritical, yelled all the time, cussed, would bang on the walls, kick the walls, would slam things on the table. They were very loud, very violently loud, and I was afraid. And so even now, I don't like fireworks. I used to be okay with fireworks. I don't like fireworks now. I don't like the loud noises. I don't like crowds. They make me very uncomfortable. I was physically inappropriately touched in a crowd twice, and I don't do well in crowds. And I don't like being alone with older men. I don't like being alone with men at all right now. I don't like being alone with nobody. I'd rather be alone by myself and my cats. Okay, and my kid. That's enough. So there's a lot going on here, okay? My mental health is going through a lot. So I say all of that because my burnout, I felt exhausted with life in general. And then the car accident happened, and I had the PTSD on top of the complex post-traumatic stress. And with the car accident, I genuinely struggled with meaning. I genuinely had an existential crisis where I was like, what the heck? Why am I even alive? What's the point of living? And for me at the time, the only thing that was keeping me really steady and doing the motions and going was the fact that I was responsible for my child. And I inherited my dad. My dad passed away and I inherited his cat. So I started being responsible for other lives. And that's actually what kept me from self-harm when I was a child. I was in some very dark places as a child, and having a cat, having a pet, being responsible for this other life kept me from doing self-harm. And would bring me out of those dark places. Because my self-worth was I did not have self-worth, okay? So these are all things I've been working on in the last few years. These are the things that I worked on to get healthy relationships, to limit the toxic and put up boundaries. Working on my self-esteem, my self-worth. I realized I'm worthy. I need to respect myself, because if I wouldn't talk to myself that way, how would I let this other person talk to me that way? I wouldn't treat my child that way. How dare I let somebody treat me or my child that way, okay? So these are the things that I started learning and I started overcoming. Now, where does this fall with hobbies? Well, hobbies got put on the back burner. And now, having come through all of that, and now I'm in a better place with the boundaries and with dealing with the external people and things, now it's time for me to get to the next level. So my next level and my next step in helping myself heal and working on better coping skills and better just healthy living habits, because right now I would show you around my house, I've got little clutters of chaos everywhere. Like, my house is not dirty. I don't have like bugs. I don't have like spilled food or mold or any of that. My house isn't that level. But I've got little piles of clutter, little clutter chaos piles all over the house. And that's just, I've always kind of lived that way. I think part of it might be, maybe there's some ADHD there, but I think it's a symptom of the trauma, because when you're stuck in survive mode, clutter is not a priority. Okay, like, this is not a priority. I can get through a wheelchair can get through my house very easily. Okay, we're not to that level. We're not to hoarder level. There's a pile of clutter right here. You can see like the book stuff. Like, I've got a little pile of clutter here. It's just like little random things that I haven't taken the time to put away, to file or throw away or recycle. Doing that takes time and effort and work, and I don't want to put no time or effort or work into it, because I work a full-time, I work a regular job, and then I'd rather do a hobby thing. I read. Reading is the hobby that is the most relaxing, the most comforting of all the hobbies, because I don't have to do anything, and I get to escape. I get to escape where I'm at. I get to fall in love and experience all the emotions of life and being a human without having to leave my couch. And my cat can hang out with me and I can drink my tea. It is the best. Reading is my #1 hobby. And I should just have a whole channel dedicated to the things I read, because, I read. I should show you some of my bookshelves. And that doesn't even cover what's on my ebook shelf for all my electronic books, my ebooks, which I have a lot, even more. A lot. Or the apps that I read on. So many things. I love reading. Reading brings me the utmost joy. So that to be said, I'm not going to feel shamed and feel bad because I'm not doing dolls. I'm still doing something that brings me joy. But I do want to start getting physically into something else. I need to be physically touching. I need to get my mindfulness back, because that will help me get back in my body and help me readjust some of these settings, because I realized recently that I'm in a state of burnout. I'm dealing with a weird depression. I call it burnout. Maybe it really is just my depression taking on a different form, because I'm not as stressed as I used to be. But it's a burnout, and it's a burnout with hobbies, videos, all this stuff. But doing the video and keeping posted on a certain schedule is motivation, because it helps me get into the physical hobbies. It makes me do something, and that's what I need to do right now. So hobbies can be incredibly cathartic. They are so powerful in helping with mental health. Hobbies like the dolls, where you are physically touching something, where you are playing with something, I feel like dolls have their own life. They have their own stories. My dolls specifically have like their own backstories. They have their own personalities. I feel like I don't care that I'm an adult and I still play with dolls. This is so healing for me. And he's based off of a book I read. Like, I bought him because he's cute. He was a mystery blind box doll. But like, I read a book where it was like a baby dragon. It looked just like this because it was Chinese kind of book. So very cute, long. But like, doing the doll stuff, doing the crafts, like even if I'm not selling them on Etsy, even if I'm not, you know, making money, although that would be a higher motivation. But honestly, I do want to make money off of it because that would ease some of the burdens of some of my other stress, and maybe it would make it even more fun because then I feel like I'm getting a higher reward. But even without the monetization, or without being like a huge #1 Etsy seller, doing these videos, if they are bringing someone joy, if they are helping somebody overcome something, I'm so happy to do this for you and to do it for me, because that's honestly at the core. I'm doing these videos, I'm doing this hobby for me, because at the end of the day, when I am alone and it is just me in the darkness, I have to be the one responsible for myself. And I have to be the one that motivates me to get up and do it all over again the next day, okay? So hobbies are for me. I'm doing these videos for me, and it keeps me motivated, it keeps me on a schedule, and it helps me get involved in something physically and keep me mindful. Because as much as I love books, it's disassociating. It's taking me out of my life, it's taking me out. So I need something that grounds me and brings me back in, so that I can reconnect. I want to make sure that I'm still emotionally available for my child, so that they can have a fulfilled relationship with me, and that I can continue to give an emotionally fulfilling role for them, so that they feel safe in a foundation in our household. So hobbies are powerful, and I will continue to do these videos. Maybe not on such a perfect schedule, although I wish I could. But I will continue to keep these videos going because it helps me with my burnout. It is my treatment, self-diagnosed treatment plan for my burnout. That being said, I do plan to do another video series called I Can Make That, because so many times I walk around the world and I see things and I'm like, I can make that. And then I do, and I'm successful. And sometimes I do it and I fail miserably, and somebody else is a better person at it than I am, and thank you for making it. So I want to do a video to show like the success and failures of I Can Make That, and maybe show people like how much goes into making things that we pay for, to show the value of what it's worth. Because sometimes we watch people and we see them make something fabulous, but because the video is sped up or they're only showing the best like highlight clips, you don't realize just how much work goes into something. And I love doing all kinds of things crafty. So that's another series that I'm going to do that will keep me grounded in mindfulness and in the reality of life, so that I can be a better person, more fulfilled, and bring a better, more fulfilled relationship for my child. That's like my #1 motivator since my accident and when I had my existential crisis, which honestly, it's probably depression. I've dealt with it my whole life, and like I said at the very beginning, depression doesn't just magically, you don't wake up one day and you're like, I'm no longer depressed, don't have to deal with that anymore. It's more like a dragon. It goes into hibernation, and when you least expect it, it puffs out a puff of smoke and you're like, oh, I'm depressed again. Or it actually wakes up all the way and goes out sieging more, and you're like totally like whatever. My depression, thankfully, has not been completely debilitating. I am not to the level that some other people I know who struggle with severe depression. My depression, again, was very specific to my environment at the time when I was a kid, and certain relationships that I now have very strong boundaries on, and that's been so great. So great. Boundaries. I support your boundaries. I support your hobbies. Do you, boo? But thanks so much for watching. Thank you for being part of my self-healing journey. And hopefully this encourages you to get out there and do your hobbies too. Share them with us. If you are a YouTuber and you do BJDs, I know I'm connected with a few of you. I know that also, like, I stopped doing these videos and I no longer am as active with some of you as I used to be. But if you're watching me and you do BJDs and you have a YouTube channel, put your YouTube channel in the comment. Let's get more awareness, okay? Let's make people aware of who you are. Comment your channel. Are you a creator? Do you do arts and crafts? Do you create things? Comment that too. Let's share our hobbies together and spread the joy. The world needs more joy, and the world needs you, because you make the world a better place by being here. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I am here. You're not alone. No matter how burned out you are, the hobbies will be here for you. If you do dolls, your dolls are still there for you. I'm here for you too. Thank you again. Until next time, blessed be. Bye.